High Commander Zena stood before the crystalline viewing screen, her iridescent scales shifting colors with growing concern. After 15,000 years of successful conquests across the galaxy, something about this small blue-green planet made her auxiliary nervous system pulse with warning signals. "Display the preliminary analysis," she commanded, her multi-tone voice echoing through the observation deck of the Cardassian flagship. Lieutenant Rax, his younger scales still showing traces of adolescent bronze, brought up the holographic display with practiced efficiency. "High Commander, the dominant species calls themselves humans," Rax began, his voice carrying notes of confusion. "But our standard classification protocols are failing." The data streams showed countless contradictions. These humans possessed no natural armor, no significant physical advantages over their planet's other apex predators, and their social structures seemed chaotic at best. Yet somehow, they had become the undisputed rulers of their world. "Show me their conflicts," Zena ordered, her primary eyes narrowing while her secondary set scanned the peripheral data streams. The viewing screen filled with images of human warfare through the ages, and what she saw defied all conventional logic. These soft, vulnerable creatures fought with a ferocity that should have been impossible. They adapted to every circumstance, turned disadvantages into advantages, and most disturbingly, they seemed to draw strength from situations that should have broken their spirits. "High Commander," Fleet Analyst Kira interrupted, her scales pulsing with urgency. "We've discovered something unprecedented in their information networks. They've been imagining us." "Explain," Zena demanded, all four eyes now focused on the new data stream. "They call it science fiction. For centuries, they'd been creating stories about contact with alien civilizations. They've simulated countless invasion scenarios, explored thousands of potential first contact protocols, and," Kira's voice faltered, "they've imagined both victory and defeat against beings like us, repeatedly." The observation deck fell silent. In 15 millennia of conquests, they had never encountered a species that had actively prepared for their arrival before even knowing they existed. "There's more," Rax added, his scales now showing distinct patterns of stress. "Their entertainment archives reveal something even more disturbing. They deliberately seek out fear. They create simulations of their worst nightmares and share them for enjoyment." Zena watched as humans willingly entered dark caves, climbed impossible heights, and dove into the deepest oceans. They didn't just face their fears, they challenged them, studied them, and sometimes even laughed at them. "High Commander," Kira spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper, "we've detected something else, something that contradicts everything we know about species development." The screen shifted to show humans rushing into burning buildings to save strangers, diving into turbulent waters to rescue unknown creatures, and standing unarmed before tanks. These beings didn't just defy their own survival instincts, they seemed to take pride in doing so. "They call it spite," Rax explained. "The willingness to accept harm to oneself in order to achieve a greater goal. No other species we've encountered has developed this trait to such an extent." Zena's scales shifted to deep purple, a sign of deep contemplation. The Cardassian Empire's entire conquest strategy relied on exploiting natural fears and survival instincts. But how do you conquer a species that turns their fears into entertainment and their weaknesses into strengths? "Launch the deep analysis probes," she finally ordered. "Full spectrum monitoring, maximum stealth protocols. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with before we proceed." As her crew rushed to comply, Zena continued to watch the screens. A human child was laughing while watching what should have been a terrifying story about monsters. A group of humans was celebrating after surviving what appeared to be a near-death experience. An entire city was rebuilding after a devastating natural disaster, their spirits seemingly unbroken. For the first time in her long career of conquest, High Commander Zena felt something new: uncertainty. These humans didn't just survive despite their fears and limitations. They thrived because of them, and that made them more dangerous than any technologically advanced civilization they had ever encountered. The Cardassian Empire had ruled the galaxy through fear and superior force for 15,000 years. But as Xena watched humans turn their greatest weaknesses into their greatest strengths, she couldn't shake the feeling that they might have finally met their match. The small town of River's Edge, Montana, population 2,847, slept peacefully under a canopy of stars. High Commander Xena had chosen this location carefully, isolated enough for containment, yet connected enough to observe human information-sharing behaviors. At precisely midnight local time, the experiment began. Initiating Phase 1 of the Fear Response Test, Lieutenant Rax announced from his station aboard the cloaked command ship, deploying the Shadow Weavers. The Cardassi's most sophisticated fear projection technology activated, creating shapes that defied physical laws. Dark, twisted forms emerged from between buildings, moving in ways that should have triggered primal terror responses. These projections had driven 3 different spacefaring civilizations to surrender within hours. Instead of mass panic, foam started lighting up across River's Edge. "Dude, check this out." A teenager's voice crackled through their monitoring systems. "It's like those creatures from that new horror game." "Anyone streaming this?" Xena watched in disbelief as humans, rather than hiding, emerged onto their porches with recording devices. "Increase the fear resonance," she ordered. "Add the sonic elements." The air filled with sounds engineered to trigger deep psychological terror, a combination of predator growls and frequencies that had evolved across thousands of worlds to signal danger. A local news van pulled up within minutes. "This is Jack Martinez reporting live from River's Edge, where we're experiencing what residents are calling either the most elaborate haunting in Montana history, or, more excitingly, potential proof of extraterrestrial activity." The reporter grinned into his camera. "Social media is exploding with theories." "They're enjoying this." Rax's scales had shifted to a pale yellow of confusion. Xena studied the monitors as humans organized themselves with surprising efficiency. Local law enforcement established a perimeter, not to contain panic, but to prevent eager observers from getting too close to the Shadow Weavers. A group of university students from the next town over had already arrived with scientific equipment. "Deploy the Mind Whispers," Xena commanded, activating their most sophisticated psychological warfare technology. The air rippled as subtle suggestions of doom, carefully crafted hallucinations, and deep psychological triggers that had broken the will of entire civilizations came into play. Within an hour, humans had turned the Mind Whispers into music. Someone created a remix that went viral on their global information networks. Others began creating artistic interpretations of the Shadow Weavers, sharing theories about their origin, and organizing impromptu ghost tours. "High Commander," Fleet Analyst Kira called out, her scales now showing distinct patterns of stress. "We have a situation developing. The humans are displaying aggressive curiosity." The monitors showed several groups organizing search parties. Military veterans, hunters, and what they called paranormal investigators were actively trying to locate the source of the phenomena. Their faces showed determination rather than fear. "This is unprecedented," Rax muttered, reviewing the data streams. "They're not just adapting to the fear projections, they're weaponizing them against us." Xena watched as humans used their primitive light-producing devices to make the Shadow Weavers cast amusing shapes on walls. Children were trying to play games with them. A group of local artists had set up easels to paint the scene. "Pull up the planetary communications," Xena ordered. The screens filled with human social media activity. #ReverseAchievement was trending globally. Humans from around the world were sharing their excitement, developing theories, and making what they called memes about the situation. "Shut it down," Xena commanded quietly. "Shut it all down." As the Shadow Weavers faded and the Mind Whispers quieted, the humans didn't show relief. Instead, they showed disappointment. Within hours, they had created thousands of memes, written multiple musical compositions inspired by the Mind Whispers, formed online research groups, and started selling River's Edge event merchandise. Someone was already organizing a yearly festival to commemorate the night. "Send word to the Imperial Council," Xena said, her scales shifting to a deep violet of troubled contemplation. "The test failed, but not in any way we could have predicted. These humans, they don't just resist fear. They consume it, transform it, and share it like a resource. We've never seen anything like this." As dawn broke over River's Edge, humans were already making plans to return the next night, hoping for another show. Local businesses had started offering Shadow Weaver specials, and tourism websites were crashing from increased traffic. The Imperial Council chamber aboard the Cardassian flagship hummed with tense energy as 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy convened for an emergency session. The chamber's crystalline walls displayed countless streams of data about human activity, each more bewildering than the last. High Commander Xena stood at the center, all four eyes focused on Supreme Counselor Vax as she presented the latest findings. Her scales had shifted to a deep crimson of frustration. "The humans have adapted to our presence far more quickly than anticipated," Xena reported. "Not only have they failed to respond to our fear stimuli as expected, but they have begun actively seeking us out." The central display showed footage from around the globe. Humans had established watching stations with sophisticated detection equipment. Amateur astronomers coordinated global networks to track Cardassian ship movements, despite their advanced cloaking technology. "Most disturbing," Xena continued, "they're using methods we never considered. They're tracking our energy signatures through atmospheric disturbances, temperature variations, and even wildlife behavior patterns." "Impossible," Counselor Mira interrupted, her scales flickering with disbelief. "Their technology is primitive. They haven't even achieved unified planetary governance." "That's precisely what makes them dangerous," Xena countered. "Their fragmented society means they approach problems from countless different angles simultaneously. While we seek perfect solutions, they embrace chaos and improvisation." The screen shifted to show humans sharing information across their global networks. They weren't just collecting data. They were crowdsourcing analysis, developing theories, and organizing response strategies. "We've intercepted some of their communications," Lieutenant Rax reported, joining Xena in the chamber. "They're not just preparing for invasion. They're excited about it. Listen to this." The chamber filled with a human voice. "If aliens are advanced enough for interstellar travel, but still resort to fear tactics, they must have some serious weaknesses. Let's find them." The council chamber erupted in murmurs of concern. Supreme Counselor Vax raised a hand for silence. "What of the isolation protocols? Surely cutting them off from their information networks will create the desired panic." "We tried that in their city called Tokyo," Xena replied. The screen showed footage of the aftermath. They adapted within hours. When digital communications failed, they created analog alternatives. They used everything from paper notes to signal mirrors. Communities grew stronger, not weaker. They treated it like a challenge rather than a crisis. "There's more," Fleet Analyst Kira added, her scales pulsing with urgency. "They've started weaponizing our own surveillance against us. They're deliberately feeding our monitoring systems contradictory information. Some humans are broadcasting false fear responses, while others display obviously artificial courage." The council watched footage of humans staging elaborate scenes for Cardassian probes, everything from mock panic to mock tea parties with empty chairs, reserved for alien guests. "They're playing with us?" Counselor Dren asked, confusion evident in his tone. "Worse," Xena responded. "They're learning about us through our reactions to them. Every probe we send, every test we conduct, reveals more about our capabilities and limitations. They're turning our assessment protocols into a two-way study." The central display showed a human child's drawing of a Cardassian shadow weaver, decorated with hearts and stars. Next to it, A scientific paper analyzed the electromagnetic signatures of Cardassian cloaking technology. "We must advance to the next phase," Supreme Counselor Vax declared. "Initiate the planetary intimidation protocol. Show them our true power." With respect, Supreme Counselor, Zena's scales shifted to deep blue, indicating grave concern. "I believe that would be a serious mistake. These humans, they respond to displays of power not with submission, but with defiance. They unite in the face of overwhelming odds." "You suggest we retreat?" Counselor Mira asked, her tone sharp. "I suggest we recognize that we face something unprecedented," Zena replied. "Our entire conquest strategy is based on exploiting predictable responses to fear and power. But humans," she gestured to a screen showing people taking selfies with a partially decloaked Cardassian probe, "they don't follow our predictions. They don't even follow their own." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For 15,000 years, the Cardassian Empire had expanded through a precise formula of psychological warfare followed by overwhelming force. But how do you conquer a species that treats psychological warfare as entertainment and views overwhelming force as a challenge to overcome? "There's one more thing," Kira added hesitantly. "We've detected a significant increase in what they call scientific breakthroughs since our arrival. Their rate of technological advancement has nearly doubled. They're not just adapting to our presence, they're being inspired by it." Supreme Counselor Vax's scales shifted through multiple colors before settling on the gray of decisive action. "Proceed with the planetary intimidation protocol," he ordered. "But be warned, we may be about to discover exactly what happens when you back these humans into a corner." As the council session ended, Zena remained in the chamber, watching the screens. A group of humans had turned the site of their failed fear projection test into a peace garden, with a sign that read, "To our cosmic visitors, we come in peace, but we don't go in fear." For a species that had mastered the art of conquest through fear, the Cardassian were about to learn a harsh lesson about the danger of making humanity afraid, not because it would break them, but because it would make them stronger. The massive Cardassian warships materialized above Earth's major cities simultaneously, their black surfaces seeming to absorb light itself. High Commander Zena watched from the command deck as Operation Overwhelming Force began, even as her auxiliary nervous system pulsed with warning signals. "All ships in position," Lieutenant Rax reported, beginning power demonstration. The ships released pulses of energy that shut down every electronic device across the planet's most populous regions. Darkness spread across cities as power grids failed. This display of technological superiority had broken the will of countless civilizations before first contact was even initiated. The humans responded by having a party. "High Commander," Kira called out, her scales shifting to confusion patterns. "They're calling it a global blackout festival. Communities are gathering in streets and parks. They're celebrating." The monitors showed humans setting up impromptu block parties, sharing food, and organizing stargazing events now that city lights no longer obscured the night sky. Children played games by candlelight while adults established community support networks with remarkable efficiency. "Launch the ground forces," Supreme Counselor Vax commanded from the Imperial Council's emergency session channel. "Show them our military might." Robotic warriors, each 3 times the size of a human, materialized in strategic locations. Their armor could withstand nuclear strikes, their weapons could level buildings. The humans immediately named them. "They're calling this one Big Dave," Rax reported incredulously, watching a group of humans take selfies with a combat unit. "They've started a social media competition for best robot nickname." But beneath the seemingly frivolous response, something more concerning was happening. Humans were studying the robots, analyzing their movements, identifying patterns. Within hours, they had mapped patrol routes and response times. "High Commander," Kira's voice carried notes of alarm, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures. The humans are adapting our own technology." The screens showed human scientists working with salvaged pieces of Cardassian tech from previous surveillance attempts. They weren't just studying it, they were improving it, finding applications the Cardassian had never considered. Impossible, Vax declared. Their technological level is centuries behind us. Sir, Rax interrupted, we're detecting thousands of small energy signatures. They're using our own fear projection technology, but they've modified it. The monitors filled with images of humans using salvaged Cardassian tech to project messages into the sky. Not messages of surrender or fear, but of welcome, challenge, and most disturbingly, humor. Hello, alien friends. One message read in glowing letters above New York. We fixed your fear projectors. They work much better now. High Commander, Kira reported, they've cracked the basic principles of our quantum communication network, but they're not trying to disable it. They're broadcasting cat videos through it. The Cardassian command network, which had coordinated the conquest of 1,000 worlds, was being flooded with human entertainment content. Battle coordinates were interrupted by recipe videos. Tactical updates were interspersed with dance challenges. This is their response to an overwhelming show of force. Vax demanded. Jokes and cat videos. No, Xena replied, her scales shifting to the deep purple of revelation. This is their way of showing us they understand us better than we understand them. They turned our own psychological warfare doctrine against us. The screens showed more evidence of human ingenuity. They had discovered that Cardassian cloaking technology created subtle variations in background radiation and turned this knowledge into a public tracking app. Children were using it to play a game they called Alien Hide and Seek. They're not just adapting our technology, Xena continued. They're democratizing it, making it accessible, turning our weapons into tools, our threats into opportunities. Surely they must realize the danger, Vax insisted. We could destroy their cities with a single command. Of course they do, Xena replied. But they've calculated, correctly, that we won't, because they've shown us something we've never encountered in 15,000 years of conquest. The central display showed humans sharing their modified Cardassian technology with each other freely, improving it through global collaboration, finding peaceful applications for weapons of war. They've shown us that they're more valuable to the galaxy alive than conquered, Xena concluded. In trying to demonstrate our superiority, we've only proven their uniqueness. A new message appeared in the quantum network, broadcasted simultaneously in every human language. To our Cardassian visitors, we appreciate the impressive light show. In return, we'd like to share something with you, our experience in turning enemies into friends. We have cookies and cats. Your move. For the first time in the history of the Cardassian Empire, their overwhelming show of force had been met not with fear or defiance, but with an invitation to learn from those they had come to conquer. And as Xena watched humans transform their weapons of fear into tools of connection, she realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their resilience or their creativity. It was their ability to see possibilities where others saw only threats. 1 month after the failed show of force, High Commander Xena stood before the full Imperial Council in the Grand Chamber of the Cardassian homeworld. The crystalline walls displayed a real-time feed of Earth, where humans continued to transform Cardassian technology in ways that defied all previous understanding of species development. Honorable Council, Xena began, her scales shifting through patterns that indicated both confusion and wonder. I stand before you to propose something unprecedented in our 15,000 years of expansion. Peaceful contact with humanity. The chamber erupted in murmurs of discord. Supreme Counselor Vax raised all 4 hands for silence. You suggest we abandon the protocols that have built our empire. I suggest we recognize that these protocols have become obsolete, Xena replied. The central display showed humans teaching children to use modified Cardassian fear projectors to create interactive educational experiences. While we tried to conquer them, they'd been trying to understand us. The screens filled with evidence of human adaptation. They had transformed Cardassian stealth technology into medical imaging devices, Combat drones had been reprogrammed to assist in disaster relief. Even the quantum communication network had been modified to help connect isolated communities. They're not just using our technology, Lieutenant Rax added, stepping forward. They're improving it. Look at this. He gestured to a display showing human scientists working with Cardassian artifacts. They found applications we never considered because our focus was solely on conquest. More concerning, Fleet Analyst Kira interjected, they're sharing these improvements with everyone. Freely, without restriction. The concepts of hoarding knowledge or using technology for dominance seemed foreign to them. The Council watched as humans continued to broadcast messages through the quantum network. But instead of their earlier playful communications, they were now sharing scientific discoveries, mathematical proofs, and philosophical discussions. They're trying to teach us, Xena explained. Not because they want to show superiority, but because they genuinely believe in the exchange of knowledge as a path to understanding. Supreme Counselor Vax's scales shifted to the deep gold of contemplation. And what of our empire? Our position in the galaxy? Perhaps, Xena suggested, it's time for the Cardassian Empire to evolve. These humans have shown us something we forgot during our millennia of conquest. There's more power in collaboration than in domination. The displays showed more evidence of human ingenuity. They had started organizing what they called reverse engineering parties, where scientists and enthusiasts worked together to understand Cardassian technology. But instead of weaponizing their discoveries, they consistently found ways to repurpose them for peaceful applications. They've even created a platform they call Galactic GitHub. Rax reported, his scales showing amusement. They're inviting us to collaborate on technological development. They've left comments in the code like, alien friends, your quantum encryption could use some updates. Happy to help. For the first time in recorded history, the Imperial Council chamber filled with sounds of Cardassian laughter. But most importantly, Xena continued, they've shown us something about ourselves. Our empire was built on exploiting fear, but humanity has proven that fear is a dead end. They've shown us that true power lies not in making others afraid, but in helping them be brave. The central display showed Earth at night, glowing not with fear-induced darkness, but with millions of lights. Humans had restored their power grids, but they'd also maintained the community connections formed during the blackout. They had faced the unknown and emerged stronger, not through conquest, but through cooperation. I propose, Xena concluded, that we accept humanity's invitation, not as conquerors, but as equals, not to teach, but to learn. Because in trying to show them our power, they've shown us our potential. Supreme Counselor Vax rose, his scales shifting to the white of momentous decision. After 15,000 years, perhaps it's time for the Cardassian to remember what it feels like to be surprised by the universe. Send the message. Tell them. Tell them we accept their invitation. And yes, we would like to try these cookies. As the council chamber erupted in historic discussion, Xena watched the screens showing Earth. Humans continued their daily lives, simultaneously preparing for both war and peace, treating both possibilities with equal dedication. They had taken the Cardassian Empire's greatest weapons and turned them into tools for connection, understanding, and growth. The empire that had ruled through fear for 15 millennia was about to learn a new way forward from a species that had transformed fear itself into a force for progress. And perhaps, Xena thought as her scales shifted to the bright blue of hope, that was the greatest victory of all. Not the conquest they had planned, but the evolution they had needed. In the end, humanity hadn't just resisted conquest, they had shown there would be conquerors a better path. And in doing so, they had changed not just their own future, but the future of all species in the galaxy. The age of conquest was over. The age of collaboration had begun.